don't think he's going to be able to do much, and for some reason trying to put some damage on that barracks. I don't know why he was doing that. His stalkers took a lot of hits there, although it looks like only one of them got down below the shields, but he did take some punches from those siege tanks, and it looks like he is going to back off for the time being, continuing to have this probe at the Xel'Naga watchtower, and he actually has a proxy pylon here as well, so he will be able to warp in forward units, cut down significantly on the amount of time it takes for him to get reinforcements on the battlefield. Meanwhile, though, TLO does have his orbital command up and running and has lifted it off to his natural expansion. And, of course, we'll be using those mules here shortly, I'm sure, to get that extra economic advantage. And if we look at the income right now, we can see that there is still a pretty big harvester advantage for TLO, despite the fact that that harassment on the mineral line, I'm sorry, TLO was the person who got harassed earlier in the game, so TLO actually managing to bounce back relatively quickly here, although he is going to be a little bit farther ahead, it looks like, than Hasu, despite Hasu trying to get his expansion up a little bit earlier. But TLO is going to try to take down that one Phoenix with his Viking and a few Marines, but unfortunately unable to do so. And there are a lot of infantry units here, and backed up by a couple tanks. That is going to be a very formidable force for the Protoss player Hasu to deal with just stalkers, which is pretty much all he has right now. Looks like a couple Zealots coming online, and he does, of course, still have the one Phoenix, but that Phoenix is pretty much just being used for scouting and spotting cliffs so that he can pick off units on those cliffs using the range attack of the stalker. But looking down across the map here, we can see there are some High Templar tech coming out right now. One High Templar being warped in right there, and he is researching Psystorm. So that is actually very, very effective against the Terran infantry units. And it looks like Hasu is going to try to push in here and do a little damage. Oh, and a BC out for TLO. That is not something that you see every day in Terran games, but looking like he wants to use that BC a little bit. I'm not sure if he's going for the Yamato tech or not. It looks like he does have it researched, but he just does not have enough energy to actually use it. So we'll see if he actually pulls that out here in a little bit, which that Yamato cannon can actually be very crucial for picking off certain units, such as the Phoenix, if he can pick that off, or a High Templar, or something like that. Just those key crucial units that give him the ability to spot cliffs or give him the Psystorm tech. If he can pick those off before they're able to really serve their purpose in the game, then he can turn the battle around relatively quickly by doing that. But it looks like there is another Hellion coming out here from TLO, going to continue to scout, looking once again over at the expansion here. And it looks like he is still unaware of the expansion for Hasu down here, although as you can see by the rally points for that lone Hellion, he is going to come down by there if it's not taken by Hasu, which Hasu moving into position to try to get it right now, but is he going to get it before he scouts it? I don't know. I want to go ahead and check and see if TLO got vision of that before. He did see the pylon, and there is the scan as well, so he is 100% aware of this expansion right now. But there is still an advantage for TLO in the income. We can see right now that there's still a significant worker advantage, of course, with the help of the mules. He has got about a 300 mineral per minute lead on Hasu right now, and Hasu actually looking like he wants to try to push on the front of TLO once again. He's got a few High Templars up in the mix now and does have one sentry as well, so possibly going to be using that Guardian Shield to help defend against the tanks and the Marines, because there are all ranged units for the Terran players, so that Guardian Shield would actually be a pretty big help, although I don't think it'll be able to cover all of his army. And TLO getting another battlecruiser out right now. I believe he actually has 2 on the map. If we take a look at the units overlay here, we can see, yes, he does indeed have 2, along with 27 Marines, 5 siege tanks now, and 3 Marauders in addition to his 58 SCVs, which are mining, which, once again, giving him a worker count lead of about 10 workers, which is significant. But anyways, if he allows TLO to get too many more BCs on the map here, it can be very, very difficult for him to deal with, especially with the ground force that TLO has to back up those BCs right now. And actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to take a quick break and get some water here while there's nothing going on, because my throat is still slightly recovering from the damage it took a couple weeks ago. But anyways, looks like Hasu just kind of positioning himself on the map here, trying to continue scouting, and actually he does have a photon cannon with 1 High Templar kind of in the background there waiting to defend, and there is a dropship full of Marines coming back to this expansion for Hasu, but there is one, oh, great Psystorm from Hasu, and he's able to defend that very easily, and that dropship is going to have to just run away because it has no more Marines to attack this. The cannon not even losing all of his shields. Oh, and TLO actually, it looks like, may lose this expansion, trying to lift it off at the last second, but manages to get picked off by Hasu, so a big loss there for TLO rather, losing that command center and not able to take advantage of that expansion hardly at all. He only just barely had that up and was starting to get it saturated with workers. But it looks like TLO actually responding by moving his siege tanks up into position to defend this area so that he can go and try to take it once again. Which, as you've seen, I do believe I mentioned this in one of my other games that I casted, but if you look at the way this map is split kind of diagonally from top right to lower left, there's a crescent moon shape here that kind of supports this natural expansion of bases across the bottom and top of the map. But as you can see, both players now, of course, Hasu did not get his natural expansion up and running first. He got the 5 o'clock position up and running before then. So taking that position a little bit out of turn, but it looks like going to intercept here a couple more Hellions and using that blink to chase down that last Hellion despite how quick it is. But he is going to be able to stop that scouting, and he is actually going for the high yield base here. So he's going to have a pretty good economic advantage if he can manage to keep TLO off of this secondary expansion and continue to expand himself, especially taking this high yield base, which, oh wow, great timing by TLO managing to scan it just as he's trying to get that base up and running. And it looks like he is actually going to try to push up into TLO's fortified position here, getting off a pretty good side storm on some of the infantry units. Oh, and a lot of side storm going down on these BCs, 3 BCs overhead, just doing a ton of damage though against this mostly ranged force from Hasu, and no more side storms from Hasu. And these siege tanks managed to hold off this position well. There you can see a lot of these units taking some significant damage because of the side storms. But there are some ghosts coming out of the map now too, probably going to try to use that EMP so that he can keep those side storms at bay. And also, you got to remember the EMP does take away shield hit points as well. So that's going to be very, very effective, especially against the primarily ground force that we're seeing from Hasu right now, because of course a lot of those ground units don't have more than 100 hit points and shields. So of course that pretty much cuts most of their lives in half, because without those shields they only have half the amount of hit points, because most of these units are not hit point heavy. They are basically half and half between shields and hit points. But it looks like Hasu once again going to try to put some pressure on. He does have the observer overhead, so I'm a little bit surprised that he's trying to get in here, although apparently that was just a quick smash and grab trying to take out those two ghosts that were just sitting a little bit too far out in front right there. He did lose 1 stalker to that because the siege tanks were able to pick it off, but I would say that that was well worth it because he was able to pick off 2 ghosts, which are very, very costly units at 150 minerals and 150 gas each. So definitely that 1 stalker sacrificing himself worth the risk, because he was able to do some significant economic damage with just taking out those 2 units. That was a decent amount of money there. But it looks like Hasu is getting this gold expansion up and running right now, and we are seeing a long drawn-out economic game now. And of course, TLO trying to stay in his base right now to get the full advantage out of this new expansion that he does have up and running, not really wanting to move those siege tanks out of position, although it looks like he is going to make a liar out of me and just now unsieging them, although he may just be moving out further to this corner so that he can more effectively defend this ramp rather than trying to move out. And that looks like that is exactly what he's doing here. He does have 2 siege tanks coming up on the ledge here. Oh, and sieging up to take out these stalkers. And I'm sorry, did he just... I don't ever do this, but I want to rewind this just a little bit. It looked like he actually just Yamato